I wasn't medicated when I met you. I wasn't medicated when I married you. I wasn't medicated for the birth of our first child or our second child, or
got the dogs.
And the dogs. I have not been medicated for that long in our life.
You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband, I don't mean him, though I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Hello, smart women, and thank you for tuning in today. Today I am recording from my own little studio on the Northern Beaches in Sydney. And today I have the privilege of talking to my husband, who, before I tell this whole story, I would like to clarify that he is an awesome, fabulous, kind, caring, non-controlling, funny and wonderful partner.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to say. That feels like I'm being softened up for some radical candour. I guess it's a privilege to talk to me, is it? Because I'm all of those good things.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just going to tell you a little story that happened. Settle down.
Is this the business with the keys?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to tell a little story that happened to me the other morning that I think a lot of you may actually be able to relate to. So you just be quiet while I tell this story.
But what if there are inaccuracies?
There won't be. Right. So in the mornings, I get up very early and I go to the gym, and I do this every day. So the night before I'm going to get up early and go to the gym, I organise myself. I get my clothes out. I put my shoes next to the bed. I make sure I've got a water bottle and a towel. So the other morning, and I weirdly, because I train in a warehouse, I take one of my dogs with me. I take the groodle with me, the caramel groodle, because the black groodle is too anxious and freezes up and shakes at the gym. So I put the dog on the lead and I get up to my car. I put the dog in the back. I put my bag in the front, and I press the button to start the car, and the car won't start. And at that moment, I recall saying to my husband, because he'd borrowed my car the night before, please put the key back in my bag. And I probably said this 3 or 4 times. Anyway, I recalled this at this moment as I'm sitting in the car. So I get out of the car, and it's now about, 20 to 6. So I get out of the car, I go back down the driveway, which is quite long, and I go into the bedroom where my husband is slumbering, and I say to him, and I think I potentially used this voice. I'll just replicate the moment for you. Being an actor is so handy. I'll just replicate it. Where's the keys? Like that. Is that right?
That was probably the first sound that I was aware of that morning.
Yeah.
Where's the keys?
Where's the keys? So then he leaps out of bed and begins to search for the keys, as I do.
It was freezing cold as well. So I leapt out of bed into the freezing cold.
Yes, that's right. It was cold. He leaps out of bed in the freezing cold. We're both running around the house looking in jackets, bags, shelves, kitchen, laundry, downstairs, upstairs, no keys. So I said to him, never mind, I'll take your car. Now, his car is a 2-door Volvo. I get his keys. I go back up the driveway.
Keys were in the bowl.
That's very good. Yes, those keys were in the bowl. Right. Don't interrupt, please, while I'm telling this bit of the story. Right. I get back up. I get to my car, get the dog out of the back of the car and the towel and the bottle, and I go back to the Volvo. I put my stuff into the Volvo. I go around. I put the dog into the passenger front seat of the Volvo. Now, the dog, for reasons that are only known to the dog, does not like being in the front passenger seat of a car.
Dog logic.
Yeah. So then I'm going around to get in the driver's seat, and in that interim couple of moments, the dog has leapt from the passenger seat to the driver's seat of the Volvo, the two-door Volvo. So then I push the dog back. He didn't like that. I pushed the dog. It's now about 5:45. I pushed the dog back onto the passenger seat of the car, and I get into the car, and as I lower my butt onto the driver's car seat, I realise that it's wet. Reason being is the dog, having leapt from the passenger seat to the driver's seat, has knocked over a full water bottle into the seat. So I curse, and I look down the driveway, and I can see my husband in a sort of a sweatshirt and his underpants running around the bottom of the driveway, still looking for the keys to my car. So then I grab the towel, get back out of the car, put the towel on the driver's seat, and it immediately soaks through. So then I think, all right, so I go back to my car, get another towel out of my car. And by the time I get back to my husband's car, the dog has got out of the car. So I get the dog. I put the dog back in the car. I get back into the driver's seat, put the second towel down, sit on it, and then realise there's a rip in the leather. So it's sort of like sitting in a swimming pool. Anyway, can't do anything about that. I sit down. I'm now soaking wet. I start the car. Dog's still unhappy, sort of staring fixedly out the window of the passenger seat. Start the car, and there's no petrol in the car. It's empty. So I look at it, 20k to go. I do the calculations. I'm going to make it, but I don't like it. I don't like driving around on hardly any petrol. My car generally is quite full of petrol, like my phone is, full of charge. So then I reverse and I start driving up the hill away from my house, and then a noise starts, the sort of noise that you hear when you're in a hospital and someone's being monitored. It goes beep, 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 beep. And that's because the dog on the dry passenger seat didn't have a seatbelt on. So then I'm driving along, I'm sopping wet. I'm nearly in tears because I'm late, and I really hate being late. So then I'm driving. I'm trying to put the seatbelt around the dog. I'm sopping wet, and it's still beeping, and there's no petrol in it, and now I'm running late. And I wasn't very happy. And when I walked into the gym, they could tell that I wasn't very happy, because normally they would say something sort of jocular and derisive, and they just looked at me and said, "Hello, Annie." Anyway, that was me. That was my story, and it wasn't great. And it's been a fairly repetitive thing through our very long relationship, has it not?
Yes.
Yeah, good. And there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is what we're now going to discuss. Because what happened in the ensuing 24 hours after that particular incident, darling?
What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, where do you want me to start? Or which aspect of the story would you like me to share?
Because you then felt upset that I had spoken in that harsh tone.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I just was upset. And I do, I do acknowledge that this is part of a particular kind of, I live on a certain branch of the neurodiversity tree. I don't make a lot of it, notably because I do think that there would be bias, some prejudice, some marking down of my mental capabilities if I had been sort of so overt about this. But it was about 8 years ago that I discovered that I had all the markers of someone who has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that ADHD. That's
do you
what
actually have the hyperactive bit? You don't do.
I don't have the hyperactivity. But I would say that, ADD, I think of it as a dopamine deficit. We call it a disorder. I know that there are some people who want, these disorders to be actually named differently because of the stigma associated with it. But I do absolutely accept that this particular, mental condition that I've got, particularly when it's untreated, does lead to a whole lot of the chaos that will surround people who have got this particular condition. I've toyed with the notion of sort of doing the essay, the coming out essay, Mia Friedman, I think, did her essay a few years ago, and people thought that was notable. And other people have written essays, and I thought, oh, look, I don't want to be like an also ran with it. But I do have a very particular experience. No two people read the same book. No two people read the same book. The reading of a book is subjective. If two different people read the same book differently, then think about what happens when someone's got a neurodiverse
I don't know what
profile.
you mean by that.
Well, not every. Look, we say that somebody has ADD or ADHD, and people go, yes, it's that. But of course, it's not that.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone with my particular well, you see, this is the thing. Even the language doesn't back that up. No one has my version of ADHD or ADD. I'm the only one who has this version of it.
And as I said to you listeners at the beginning of this story, David is extraordinary. He has an amazing brain. His IQ is I don't know what, but I'm not an idiot. And I know that David is brighter than I am, which is quite difficult for me to say, but he has a different sort of intelligence. His memory is prodigious, and his capacity to absorb a massive amount of information really, really quickly. And then what do you do with information once you've absorbed it? Because you're really good at it.
Yeah. It goes in, and I think about how it might work. I tend to hypothesize, if we were to do this in this situation with those factors, with that mechanism over this period of time, based on what it is that we already know, we're likely to get this particular outcome. And this is, I do know that one of the characteristics that I've developed is this sort of this overactive, creative, hypothesizing groove that I get into. But I got to say that even as I'm talking about it at the moment, I feel really uncomfortable. I actually don't enjoy the, David's smart and David's got a good brain. Let me just say that he's really terrific over here before we talk about how challenging he is over here.
And why do you think that you are different to everybody else who has issues? I mean, you know that I'm highly anxious.
Yeah. And
so if you say to me, you're awesome, which I actually pretty much think I am.
Yep.
I'm awesome and I have anxiety.
That's right. That's right. And the thing is that, no two people read the same book. No two people have exactly the same condition.
Stop saying that now and use another metaphor. It's really irritating.
Okay. Well, not everybody. No, it's meaningless to almost to say that somebody has ADHD or someone has anxiety as if it is a brand of cornflakes that everybody's buying. Everybody manifests these conditions in their own way. Now, you say, yes, you've got a really good self-esteem, which I think is fantastic.
Me?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. You don't question yourself and you have anxiety.
Yeah.
And so when I say to you, oh, look, that was really awesome, or that was really great, or don't be worried, I think that you're fabulous.
Yeah.
That has an impact on you.
Yeah, I go, that's good.
Yeah. When I hear you saying, David's smart, he's nice, he's conscientious, he doesn't push me around.
You just hear the but.
I hear the but, and it's almost like this is the compensation. It's like that's the compensation.
So have you ever thought of challenging that perception? Because it's quite, it would be nice to be able to give you a compliment without you waiting for the but.
Well, if it was just a compliment and there wasn't a but at the end of it, then it might be different.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
But I think. Don't
get too serious.
No, but I was going to say I think that this is actually probably useful insofar as people outside the tent, people who do not have the condition or the variation on the condition, I do think that they struggle to actually appreciate how it plays out. So yes, I was diagnosed 7 or 8 years ago.
I think it's more.
Really? Yeah, it could have been.
Well, my memory's crap, so that could be. You're probably right.
Okay, without sort of doing the maths and making me sound absolutely ancient, I was in my late 40s, so I'd had at least 45 years of living in a world where my challenge with detail, listening, reading. I learned that I was also dyslexic. I didn't know that. But all I knew was that reading put me to sleep.
And also the other thing about the reading is that we are both actors, and actors are often called upon to do what's called a cold read. So you read up off the page. So you just take the dialogue and you just read it. And when I would write something, I noticed that David was quite clunky. And I used to say things like, David, pick it up. Why are you being so slow? And then I realised years later it's because he's a little bit dyslexic. So it's mean of me. I'm sorry about that.
Well, when you live in a world where you don't read as quickly as other people, or reading takes more mental energy than it takes other people, and yet there's no explanation for it, I developed a fairly challenging self-perception. And that was that, people identified that I was smart, but I wasn't sort of performing in the way that I should. So the only answer to that was that I was lazy.
Yeah, so mean.
I was lazy, I was indolent, I didn't care. I mean, the disorganisation thing, which I know, my mind does go from one thing to the next, so I leave a trail, and I can sometimes, and I often, lose track of objects.
Often,
so
regularly,
phone,
every day.
Keys, and...
My keys.
Now, there's a critical thinking cognitive error known as the availability bias. And the availability bias, it distorts reality, so that the only time you become aware that your partner has lost their keys is when they have lost their keys.
It's confirmation bias.
Sorry?
It's confirmation bias.
It's availability because it's right in front of you.
It's not true, David.
Oh, it's confirmation bias. Okay, so it's confirmation bias.
You do lose them a lot. There's no point saying
about how many days of the week?
Oh my God!
Because you're saying every second day. I'm curious.
Oh my God!
What is your calculation?
Are you actually going to question whether or not you constantly lose your keys and your phone and your glasses?
You see, constantly. That's a very general term.
And this is the defensiveness that comes with being. And
okay.
It is true. It is true.
Oh, look, I absolutely recognise the defensiveness. In fact, part of me, I'm sort of standing up for myself slightly tongue-in-cheek, because I do know that my drive to defend myself is the result of over 40 years of feeling like I'm letting people down.
And feeling wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's again, if this is not your condition, then I do think it's very difficult for you to actually be able to appreciate what it is like, not just to sit in that space for a couple of hours, but for that to be your entire reality. One thing I do know about myself, my relationship with my parents, I was desperate to be approved of. Like desperate to be approved of. I mean, I think that in terms of my psychology, that's one of the dials that was set high. So, what are the things that come with ADD? Losing things, disorganisation, losing track of time, and then people talk about this behavioural stuff where you get very defensive around it. And I know the thing that drives the defensiveness is that, perhaps it's my mind that's come to this conclusion. I'm letting people down because I don't care. And that was the thing on that morning with the keys.
I never think that. I never think that you don't care. Never. Yeah. That's not what I'm just frustrated because that's my reality.
Yeah, that's right. And so, this is how drama arises between people who've got different stories in their head. I'd gone up. What did I go? I'd gone up to the shop the night before because I think we needed some milk or something like that, and that's why I'd taken that car. And I remember at the time putting the key, because this is what I have to do. This is how I do keep track of things. I've got to build these little processes and routines. So if I put that in there, then there's no way that I'm going to lose it, and that's how this is going to go well. And so if Annie asks me where the key is, I'll be able to go. It's in my satchel. It's in the bag. That's where it is. But unfortunately on that morning, I couldn't think straight because I woke to where's the keys? And in my mind, it was, you've done it again. And so, imagine that's your reality when you wake up. I literally couldn't think straight. And so, yes, I knew the key was somewhere, but I couldn't remember where it was. And yeah, that was actually considerably distressing. Again, I think it was because I'd only just woken up and I didn't have my perspective all I felt in that moment was I'd failed again. Yeah. And that's the tricky thing with time to think about it and get perspective. Not a drama, but there was drama that morning. There was definitely drama.
But if you cycle back to the moment when you've got the key,
Yeah.
this is the interesting thing.
Yeah.
It should either go in the bowl or
Yeah.
in my bag.
Yes.
There was a third place,
Oh no. Well, the bag, the bowl or the bag will hand it to you.
but neither of those happened.
No. Well, you're asleep. Didn't want to go in and put it in the bag
So why didn't it go into the bowl?
because I think I probably moved on to the thing that I was doing. Putting the milk in the fridge or something like
That's
that.
right. So, and I think that's the thing to understand is that it's never deliberate. It's always, the intention is always to do the right thing, but the brain has moved on and deep dived into the next thing, correct? Isn't that right?
Oh yeah. Oh look. That is the thing, but my uncomfortable memories of childhood were long, extended periods of living in dread that I was late with assignments, late with homeworks, had forgotten this, had lost that, had did this, that, and the other.
And that gets re-triggered.
Again, it's like you're not occupying that space just for a couple of hours. That is your reality. You wake up in the morning and how am I going to get it wrong again today? Without any other explanation
Of what's going on.
then I've got a fundamental character flaw.
Right. So what happened when you ended up going to see the psych
Yeah.
and it changed in your late 40s? And what did they say to you?
Yeah.
Because we know that the ADHD is very, very common.
Yeah.
And yet I do hear a lot of diminishment of it, saying it's not real.
Oh, yeah.
It's just overdiagnosed. People are just lazy. People are disorganized. Every second kid's got it. And in my experience, that is not true. It is not overdiagnosed. I would say it's underdiagnosed. And if you have any of those symptoms where you can't organise yourself, you forget things, you can't keep track of time. I mean, you don't have any of those symptoms like people can't keep relationships together. You've been really good at that, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people's lives are very, very disrupted because they do have this undiagnosed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt really sort of bad explaining this to my father. My mother had passed before I'd even had that diagnosis. I remember one of the last things that she ever said to me.
Why am I laughing? It's so mean.
Yeah.
I don't need to be mean.
Well, it's not mean, but I mean, she was she didn't have long to go, and I think I did something or said something or reminded her of something, and then she looked at me and she just said, "You're a dill."
Oh my God, no!
Yeah.
Oh, David, that's terrible.
A dill, and a dill, not real smart, not real clever, not really.
She wouldn't have meant that. She would know that you're smart.
I think it was her way of expressing some of the challenges that I posed her in life. Because she was a teacher, and she was a teacher at a local school, and the word came back that I was misbehaved and badly behaved in class, so I was sent home, and my mother homeschooled me for a couple of weeks, and so they sort of both my parents were terrific and loving, but they had no idea about this. They had no idea about the ADHD, and it's almost. When I've spoken to my father about it, I feel almost part of me wants to go, see, I wasn't character flawed after all. I know that I disappointed you, but there was a reason for it, and that reason wasn't entirely within my control, and I feel bad about it because then my father goes, well, we just did the best that we could at the time, and there wasn't an enormous amount of support.
But there is now.
Well, there is now,
so what happened? Tell me.
What I'm suggesting is that is a correction. This idea of underdiagnosed. I think accurate diagnosis is important, but for someone who had loving parents, people trying to do their best, even they were not able to give me the support at that time that could have made a difference.
What could have?
What could have made a difference? Well,
what did make a difference?
Well, certainly when I started taking the medication. I remember the very first afternoon that I took
Me too.
10 milligrams of Ritalin. And it was like, okay, what's going to change? And the feeling was really small, quiet, but profound. I felt like everything was okay. I felt I'm present. It wasn't a head rush. It wasn't a big euphoria. It was just, no, everything's okay, which makes sense to me given my understanding of the mechanism. That my term is a dopamine deficit disorder, and my understanding is that
keep talking while I let the dog in.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, we know that dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is involved in reinforcing behaviour, reinforcing decisions and behaviour. When you do the right thing, you get a little reward of dopamine, and that just tells you that you're doing the right thing and to keep going and to keep doing it. And particularly if it's one of those long administrative tasks that takes a lot of concentration, if you can be rewarded with that dopamine, you stick with it. In the absence of the dopamine, you go searching for it because you just feel that something has to happen. Some people will eat, some people will take risks, some people will drink and take illicit drugs, and it is too. And some people will take the medication.
I just think this notion that we shouldn't be relying on medication and the whole thing is just big pharma and they're making a big fuss about it so they can ply us with drugs, as if plying people with supplements and vitamins and tinctures and powders which come out of factories is somehow, as if plying people with supplements or vitamins or tinctures or creams.
It's a magnesium disorder.
Or anything is actually better than something that actually comes out of a big pharmaceutical. Because with a big pharmaceutical, nothing's perfect, but out of a big pharmaceutical there is testing.
Yep.
Somebody who's plying you with a supplement, there is absolutely no oversight because there's literally millions of them. And the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, hasn't got time to be testing everything. So I don't get it. Like, supplement does not equal natural any more than pharmaceutical does. It's rubbish. Yeah.
Look, I'll take Ritalin or Concerta in order to do what I need to do in order to function in a neurotypical world. I wasn't medicated when I met you. I wasn't medicated when I married you. I wasn't medicated for the birth of our first child or our second child, or
we got the dogs.
And the dogs. I have not been medicated for that long in our life. I do notice that when I'm medicated, there are some things that I'm able to do a whole lot better. But now that I've got so many years reflection on it, I do look back and I go, well, I remember how extraordinarily creative I was in my 20s and 30s and how,
You're still creative.
Yeah, I wonder if by degree, I do wonder if something is different, if something is missing.
We are in the fortunate position of having a fairly good understanding of sort of cognitive biases and around neurodiversity, just from a layman's point of view, because David has listened to a lot and I have read a lot around those things. So our comprehension of what is going on in the brain and how that affects the interchange between people is quite high. We're both pretty aware.
We're literate.
We're pretty literate.
Literate about the way that the mind works.
And pretty aware. And yet even for us, it has been challenging, hasn't it?
Look, and certainly it continues to be. I'm looking at ways of, reducing the medication by doing more behavioural CBT and variations of it, acceptance commitment therapy, I think has a lot to offer. But at the moment, I think that I am in a steady space. I certainly notice it when I don't take the medication. insofar as if I don't take the medication in the morning, by 10:30 I have an overwhelming urge to have a nap. To go to sleep.
It's true.
And certainly, you're not medicated the entire time. I notice when the medication runs out, and if that's not a moment when I need to be concentrating or doing those sorts of things, then that's fine. I spend more than half my life unmedicated.
David has had to put up with the fact that I have an anxious personality, and that also has its challenges. So no one's perfect, right?
I mean, the anxiety tends to make you very sensitive to risk. Is that right?
Highly.
The thing about ADHD or ADD is that we go in search of risk in order to get adrenaline going to make up for the deficit of dopamine.
And I am also a person who is very habitualized. So, I spend years doing exactly the same thing, right?
Yes.
I get up, I go to the gym. I have a very rich and varied life because of the work that we do and the coaching that we do. So, but within that environ, I'm quite habitualized. I tend to eat the same things. I don't drink on Monday and Tuesdays. I go to the gym every day. It's just what I'm like. And David, of course, is the exact opposite. So he picks up, he'll be really invested in surfing. He'll be really invested in, what else have you been invested in? You go from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah, the diving, the football. I chose a career where there was lots of adrenaline. So I went to NIDA, trained as an actor, worked as an actor. There's lots of adrenaline.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing football. I enjoy playing swimming, snorkeling with sharks and things like that. Sort of high adrenaline things. I do those things to kind of make up for it.
Adrenaline, it's true, yeah.
They're relatively high adrenaline things.
The things that you start and stop, like you'll start something in the garden, then go on to the next thing, then go on to the next thing, and tear down the pool fence, and then get another pool fence and drive out to Liverpool and bring it home and put it in the driveway.
Yes.
And then it sits there. So what about that?
If it was a crime, I would say guilty as charged. No, that is exactly what I do because, again, how does someone with this condition actually get themselves going? They get excited by something. They get excited by possibility. They get excited about making something better and creating a solution that will do this. It's like it's almost like this insatiable drive to achieve something good
in the moment,
and again and again and again and again. And I don't know how much the approval seeking was a precursor to the ADD kind of condition, or whether it arose out of it, or whether I had an approval-seeking tendency and the ADHD, and they kind of came together, and that gives me my current pathology, which is, I feel really, I feel uncomfortable in any situation where I'm not given the capacity to be able to fix something.
Oh, which is why you advise people all the time.
All the time. How can I help?
Unasked.
No.
No.
Okay, guilty as charged.
Yeah, but I tell you what.
If it was a crime.
The thing is, you're a very good coach. You're very good at coaching.
Yeah,
people.
I am.
You're really, really good at that.
Yeah, I am.
So, but that's interesting about that problem-solving thing, isn't it?
I'm undeserving unless I'm making a contribution.
Has that not changed in all these years?
No.
Man.
No.
Really?
No.
That's never shifted.
After
all those years of being married to me.
Yeah.
Wow. That's some commitment to that.
Like, this year we've been playing football and it's been not a really great year.
Last two games were good though.
Last two games were good. It hasn't been a really great year because I've been really injured. I'm the goalkeeper. There's only one goalkeeper in the team.
Don't
so
start on that.
I've been playing. But what has happened at the end of the year, and it's so profound, I feel like I am now fit enough because I've been taking lots of painkillers. I'm able to move without impingement, and the thing that I'm happiest about is I'm actually making a contribution. I'm making my contribution to the team. If you've got a goalkeeper on one leg, they're compromised. I want to be uncompromised, making a contribution. So,
so I guess
I do know it gets annoying.
What does?
The unharnessed drive to help people. I definitely do know.
I'll tell you what's an interesting thing we haven't touched on is, and I know this is where it crosses over into the autistic spectrum, ADHD,
yeah.
ADD, is picking up social cues.
Yeah.
So what we might do is listen to an excerpt from my book, Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions. One of the characters misses the social cues. I bet some of you will find this familiar. This is an excerpt from Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions, where the lead character, Kat, agrees to go on a weekend away with her friend, Amy.
You have been invited on a weekend away. Your best friend, Amy, suggested it would be good for you to have a break.
Stop moping around after that pathetic skinny hipster,
She'd said. She has another new boyfriend. She collects them like stamps. This one's from her work. His name is Manveer. Manveer is inviting some of his friends. You haven't met them, but according to Amy, he's really cool. You should come. Your imagination endows Manveer's friends with good looks, jeeps and fair old jumpers. You'll be drinking red wine in front of a roaring open fire and kicking around autumn leaves. You can post it on Instagram. Your mother will see it. You could be engaged to one of his friends by Christmas. After berating yourself for engaging in such a traditional, non-feminist view of yourself, you agree to attend the weekend away. You arrive at the house. It is dusk, and it is picture book pretty, surrounded by flame-red maples and dogwoods. You are enchanted. You enter the house and Manveer, the new boyfriend, is standing in the entrance to the lounge room looking at his phone. He's very tall and exceedingly skinny.
"This is Kat,"
says Amy. She stands on her toes, kisses him on the cheek and heads up the stairs. You're left standing there.
"Hi, Manveer."
You say.
Hi, Kat.
Says Manveer.
Welcome to the ranch.
He's looking at you so directly it unnerves you.
"How was the drive down?"
You ask. Amy had driven her Camry like a Maserati.
Very nice, very nice. It's good they've had some rain.
Manveer strikes you as an IT consultant.
"Yes, it's been very dry."
You say.
"Anyway, I'll just go and find myself a bed."
All the good ones are gone, unfortunately.
He says. You avoid contact with IT as much as possible at work. You're now stuck with one of their contingent for the weekend.
Are you a runner?
Says Manveer.
I'm sorry?
A runner. Are you a runner?
No.
If you want to run tomorrow, I am doing a 20k at 5 a.m. I'm in prep for the half marathon.
Right, no, I'm not a runner.
Well, if you change your mind, I have an extra headlamp.
Right.
You say.
Well, I'll just nip upstairs.
We're skipping forward to later in the chapter where there's a blackout in the house and Amy and Kat wait in vain for Manveer and Kyle to go out to the fuse box.
"Well,"
says Amy, her voice primly bright.
"if we can't find the house manual, we should probably just go outside and look for the fuse box."
I'll just ring the owner.
Says Manveer.
Get someone to come.
He dials. They all stand looking at him.
No answer.
He says. There is a pause.
"Oh, well then,"
says Amy.
"Kat and I will go and look for the fuse box."
It's so obviously a threat, you wait for Manveer to counter her.
Okay, thanks, Amy. I'll try ringing her again. Oh, the headlights are near the front door.
Says Manveer. Amy doesn't move, however. You can see her face, lit by her phone, staring at Manveer.
"Would you like us to collect some wood for the fire while we're at it?"
Says Amy. Clearly, she is as unenthusiastic about going outside into the pitch-black spider-infested yard as you are. Manveer shines the light of his phone towards the fireplace.
No need, babe. It's a gas fire.
He says. This is your problem with IT people. They're so literal. You glance sideways at Amy. She's still standing in the same position, staring at Kyle. You follow her gaze. She seems to be playing the, if I stand here staring at you long enough, you'll figure out I'm not happy game. You want to tell her it's futile. You tried the stare off into the middle distance looking sad and faintly troubled game for 13 months, 2 weeks and 6 days, and the hipster still left.
"Come on, Kat,"
she says loudly, grabbing you too hard by the forearm.
"Let's go and find the fuse box."
Cutting forward again, the girls, having successfully located the fuse box, head back inside and wait for Manveer and Kyle to praise them.
Elated by the successful end to your difficult and dangerous quest, you high-five. You are warrior women. You do not need men to shepherd you through life. You are independent, courageous and autonomous. You run confidently through the well-lit backyard and burst into the house. The boys are sitting in the same position on the couch with the addition of a couple of cans of Coke.
Hey, Amy.
Says Manvir, not looking up from his phone.
You found the fuse box.
There is a pause.
Yes.
Says Amy.
No thanks to you.
Amy's warrior woman is leaving the building. Disappointed, angry girlfriend is resurfacing.
Well, I was ringing the owner.
Says Manvir. Another pause in which Amy stares fixedly at Manvir.
It was very scary, Manvir.
She says.
Oh, didn't you take the headlamps?
Says Manvir, still looking at Kyle's phone. Amy exhales theatrically.
I was freezing, Manvir, and the yard was full of venomous spiders.
Me too. I went too. Also, a minute ago the spiders were harmless.
Well, you offered.
Says Manvir. Perhaps he thinks Amy will say...
Oh yes, I did too. Well, that's all right then.
She doesn't. Manvir is now trying to focus on Amy, but his eyes keep straying towards the phone held by Kyle.
When somebody says I'll go, they generally mean could you please go?
Says Amy. Manvir's phone rings.
Hi.
He says.
No, it's all good.
He gives the group an optimistic thumbs up.
We found the fuse box. Right. Yes. Probably the rain. Thanks again.
He hangs up, smiles at Amy.
We found the fuse box?
Says Amy.
Who's we?
His smile fades.
Well, I just meant the generic we.
Says Manvir.
For the purposes of the conversation, she didn't need details on precisely who, just that it had been resolved.
Amy gives you a, can you believe I'm having this conversation look?
Anyway?
Says Manvir, trying gamely to bring the conversation to an optimistic end.
It's back on, so that's good.
It didn't come back on by magic.
Says Amy, a precursive wobble appearing in her voice. Amy is now standing, arms crossed, staring at Manvir across the room. Manvir's eyes are still flickering back and forth like a nervous border collie between her and Kyle's phone. She looks angry, he looks mystified. You recognise your own behaviour in Amy with blinding clarity. The oblique statements, the desperate desire that you will get what you want without having to go through the indignity of asking. The disbelief that your emotional state is not being transmitted or received on some magical wavelength of understanding.
So,
You venture,
I guess we'll think about dinner.
No, we won't.
says Amy. Zero sensitivity Kyle realises there is mounting tension in the room and wrests his attention away from his phone.
We could go into town.
He says,
Save you cooking.
Save us cooking? Why are we cooking?
says Amy tightly. Kyle moves and stands behind Manvir.
Kyle, that's sexist. Why should the girls cook?
Says Manvir.
Kyle and I will cook dinner. We'll barbecue the meat we bought.
I'm vegetarian, Manvir.
Says Amy.
I thought maybe you'd take a break, have a sausage.
Says Manvir. Come on, Manvir, you think. You're careering towards the precipice. Veer right, veer left, just for God's sake, veer. Amy walks towards the door.
After we've risked our lives in the venomous spider-infested backyard, you're now going to make me eat a sausage?
No,
Says Manvir.
I just didn't know if you were a full or part-time vegetarian.
Amy opens the door.
Kat and I might just go then.
So this is a great example of a person with the absolute best intentions missing the subtext of the conversation and taking what the other character says absolutely literally. And I bet for many of you, you find this familiar. I think that's a really good start, and I wouldn't mind if we had another chat another time about it.
Well,
because
you've got to be a bit more, friendly.
I was so nice.
I think you're a bit aggressive.
I was lovely.
When I suggested that maybe there was a little bit of availability bias,
It's confirmation.
I know you
bias.
think it's confirmation. It's available because it's right in
both.
front of
It's both.
It's both.
You can't. Anyway, I do love
Bias.
you.
And I love you too.
Thank you. That was really good. We will do it again sometime. Thank you very much.
Why don't you ask your punters if they want to hear from me again? Maybe they
I'm
don't.
going to ask for their opinion.
But, I mean, if there's a problem, I'd like to solve it, okay?
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you very much, David, for not being too defensive and for talking about what goes inside your head between those ears.
And Annie, thank you for your
Shut up.
wisdom.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Your bottomless pit of wisdom.
Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Don't you say goodbye last.
Oh,
It's
really?
my podcast.
Is it? Bye for now.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in to Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin. The actors in this episode's excerpt of the audiobook of Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions are Odile Leclasio, Lily McCubbin, Lachlan McCubbin, Cody Ross, and myself, Annie McCubbin.